Hey, everybody. How are you doing on this amazing Wednesday? Good morning, and thanks for joining DC Live. I know that many of you are so excited about today's broadcast because I am too. There are two women that I have just been counting the days to chat with, Jennifer Bartolotta and the amazing Stacy from Wallpapered City. So cool. I already know that we are all going to love these conversations. So thanks for tuning in. And I will remind you that tomorrow there is a special edition of DC Live with Chef Dan Jacobs, who was just on the Food Network with Beat Bobby Flay. So he's going to talk to us tomorrow. And I'll show you at the end of today's broadcast. I just came across this really amazing young entrepreneur who just graduated from Marquette last year. She is started an ice cream company, dairy-free, called Live a Little Ice Cream. And I just completely fell in love with what she's doing. So she's going to join us tomorrow too. So you can get introduced to her as well. So can't wait for that. I do want to just give a quick recognition, of course, that for those of you watching outside of our state and community, I'm sure you have heard on national news as well, but our wonderful city of Kenosha is in unrest, and it has just been so difficult to see what has happened there, what's continuing to happen, and we certainly need to give all of our thoughts and prayers to Jacob Blake and his family. And I understand I don't have the details, so I'm not going to get into it because I was prepping for this morning's show and didn't really look into it further. But I know that there were some other casualties and awful things that happened overnight and this morning. So just a big thought goes out to everyone dealing with this horrible situation in Kenosha. So this morning, oh, so many fun people to say good morning to. Karen, good morning. Oh, Stacy's mom is here. So glad that she's tuning in to watch. Can't wait. Adam, good to see you, of course. And so many fun people coming online. So thank you so much. I am going to get this conversation started because, you know, there's so much to talk about with my first guest, which is my dear friend and somebody that I have just admired in so many ways for so many years. And it's going to be so great to talk to her. I'm bringing her into stream, the super, super fabulous Jennifer
Bartolotta.
Hey, Jen.
How are we?
Oh my gosh, we are so good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I woke up today and I got my exercise in early because it's going to be super hot and humid out. And I am really excited about the opportunity to spend some time with you, David.
Oh, Jen, I'm so grateful for the time. And I'm so glad that you said yes to chatting together. This means a lot to me. So I'm super excited about it. And I have to first start by saying, I just love those glasses, super stylish.
Thank you. I would have never chosen them. They're the new age version of bifocals, David. They're called progressive lenses.
Oh.
I realized that I needed glasses late last year, and I like to promote local businesses, so I went to be speckled in Wauwatosa. And the woman who helped me choose the frame chose these, and I looked at her and I'm like, she's like, just put them on. And I love them, so thank you.
Oh yeah, they're super cool. They totally work. Great shop in Tosa too. Peggy Williams-Smith says hi, good morning. Regina, Mary, so many fun people. I love this, Jen. So here's the thing. I am kind of, one thing I want to say is we had an agreement that any questions are on the table and anything is fair game, and that none of this was shared with you beforehand. So I really appreciate your openness to the conversation too, and I know that viewers will. But I wanted to start because there are certain things that not everybody even really knows about you, except for most, your life in the hospitality and restaurant industry. So I wanted to just start with a few personal facts, but we're going to go on a little journey. So I hope you're ready.
Let's go.
So first of all, I don't even know if I know this, but did you grow up in Milwaukee?
No, I'm a transplant. I moved here for Joe. We started dating in 20 years ago in the year 2000, and we dated long distance for 2 years, and then I moved here. But I am the product of parents. My dad was in international business with Gerber Baby Foods. Actually, my family, my brothers and I think my dad was in the CIA, and that's why we moved around so much. But in 60 years of marriage, my parents have shared over 35 addresses. So we're constantly on the move. We spent some time. I grew up on a beach in San Juan, Puerto Rico for part of that.
Oh,
I
wow.
lived in Costa Rica. I'm really well traveled in the southern part of this part of the hemisphere just because of relationally being there and having the opportunity to go other places once I was down there. So no, but I love Milwaukee and it is home.
That's so cool. Wow, I didn't know all of those places. Costa Rica, one of my favorite spots. That's so
Yeah,
cool. I
beautiful.
love that. Now, what really drew you into hospitality? How did you really kind of discover your heart of hospitality?
So when we moved to Puerto Rico, my mom is a gourmet cook and is very skilled. And at the time that we moved to Puerto Rico, it was in the early 70s, and travel isn't anything. Well, now in the age of COVID, it's completely different. But pre-COVID, travel resembled nothing like what it was then. It was a 12-hour journey. If you lived in the Midwest to arrive in San Juan, Puerto Rico, you had to fly through Miami.
Right.
And my mom just felt that if you were going to travel all that way to do business with my dad in San Juan, Puerto Rico, the least that we could do as a family was open our doors when you landed and offer you a warm meal. And so I grew up in this environment, this hospitality environment, if you will. And my mom cooked a 3 or 4 course meal, and we all sat down, and it wasn't uncommon for wine to be poured, and I was in 5th grade, and my parents certainly aren't pushers by any stretch of the imagination, but they believe that the universe is a school and that you learn by doing. And so we learned by having conversations with people that my dad was going to be doing business with. We learned to engage in that at the table as opposed to sit there, be seen and not heard kind of a thing. They encouraged our participation and they encouraged our exploring what they were. So if wine was poured for dinner and we wanted to have a sip, that's all we got, literally, like less than a tablespoon. But we were offered a sip, right? So then it was never anything that we were ever curious about because we'd been exposed almost our entire
Right.
lives.
Right.
So I started very early on with this idea that you should take care of one another.
Right. That is so fantastic because I think one of the things I'm most excited about today is I know that after our conversation, people are going to have so much more insight into who you are as a person and an individual. And that is just part of it because a lot of people, I do think, feel that your heart of hospitality started here. Maybe even with your experience as Joe with as your husband and in the restaurant industry. So I am so excited because that heart of hospitality started so much earlier and it's so infused in who you are in every way. So yeah. I love it because we're going to continue to evolve this conversation and hear more about all of that. So I have one thing, Jen, that I'm going to admit to you because I'm not a jealous person, but there is one thing about your life experience that I am just a teeny bit jealous of. And I don't know if you can guess what it is.
My first date with Joe was Julia Child's 90th birthday party, and Paul was one of the chefs.
Oh, damn it. I didn't even know that. But Julia Child, oh, yes. Okay, 2 things then. But meeting Oprah.
Oh.
Okay, I'm just telling you that this is the one thing, even if it was brief or whatever the interaction was, but I can tell in this togetherness that there was a moment for you. And now you don't know this about me and most people don't, but you know how you got to envision things?
Yeah.
Well, look at what I literally, Jen, literally superimposed.
I mean,
is this not the greatest? Okay, so I'm with her. I pretend that I'm you and met her on the red carpet. Here's another one. Ready?
Oh my gosh, you're awesome.
Yes. So
So we're learning about
I
each
just
other. Thanks for sharing.
so I have fake ones, but anyway, I thought that was so funny when I was looking at things through your pictures. I'm like, oh, Oprah, and I remember when that happened, and I
That was
was
quite a
like
moment
super
for sure.
jealous. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So cool. So the next part of our journey is moving on to talking a little bit about life without Joe. And this is one thing that is, certainly for you, I can only imagine that there are good days and bad days still, of course. And, I think one thing that you've done is really recognize that even for other people, there was a big effect, and that you kind of understood that a lot of people had some pretty heavy grief when it came to Joe's passing. And I really just, admired that about you. So one of the things, our community certainly was, shocked and deeply saddened when Joe passed, which was in April of 2019. And I remember watching you on stage at the Riverside during the celebration of life and just being so impressed and so grateful for kind of how you were dealing with other people's personal feelings around the loss too. But I was just wondering, do you even remember that day? And if you do, what touched you the most?
I remember it clearly. Truth be told, I heard a voice at 3:30 in the morning. So I found him on a Tuesday at 3:30 in the morning on Thursday morning. So 2 days later, I heard this voice in my head that said, "Go get a pencil and a paper." To which I replied, "No," several expletives. "You died. I haven't slept. I'm exhausted. Go away." And I heard it again, "Go get a pencil and a paper." And I said, "No, I have a house full of people, again, because you died. I'm exhausted. Go away." And then I heard it again, "Go get a pencil and a paper." So I wasn't going to do that, but I picked up my phone. And for 2.5 hours, there was this just stream of consciousness, kind of me thinking and pouring out onto my phone what was coming to me. And I heard things like, "Say it like this, you can ad lib that, order it the way you want to." And so I remember it because he essentially fed me most of what I said. What touched me most about that day, honestly, David, I knew when I met Joe that he belonged to everybody. Joe didn't belong to any one person. He was a typical Sagittarius that didn't like boxes or boundaries. And so he was a man of the people. And when I thought about it, quickly became apparent, like on day one, that a normal funeral wasn't going to work. Plus, I promised him I wasn't going to do that. And then, as the word spread and the reach out was coming at us fast and furiously, we knew we needed a larger venue. And so, a larger venue then also said to me that I needed to give other people the opportunity, knowing who Joe was, to offer a tribute. And again, those names kind of just came to me. It was natural to include his siblings. It was, of course, natural to include his daughters and his first wife, Katie. And then his friends, and then people from the company, right? And so he touched a lot of people. And the names kind of just came to me. And what I was most touched by is there were several people that spoke that they were so far out of their comfort zone. I was so touched that, knowing what that was going to do to them emotionally, to have to get up there and deliver, that they were willing to put themselves out there and be vulnerable in that way, offering tribute to their best friend, essentially. There were some speeches and performances, if you will. That sounds horrible, given that it was a celebration or a remembrance, right? But really, their ability to perform under those circumstances, talking about their best friend that they just lost, was so meaningful to me. I think it was such a gift to everybody, so that everybody could have this insight about him, because he was while he was the same person and he never confused you, he was the same person, but to many different types of people.
Yeah, that is so true. And I remember one of the greatest joys for me that day in the audience was hearing from, one of his very close best friends and people that, I probably would never have known had such a connection to him, and to hear the variety of people that were so engaged with his life and so important to him, and vice versa. But that there were so many common threads, like you said, he was the same person, but to so many different people. It was really cool. And what were the things, I loved this piece. You had his lunchbox, and what else?
His Crocs.
Yes, yes.
So he suffered from juvenile diabetes, and he had a kidney transplant. And in the last 18 months or so of his life, the neuropathy in his feet had become somewhat debilitating, and we hid that from the public. Some people knew, but we mostly hid that his feet were pretty painful. And the only shoes he was really comfortable in was those Crocs. And he had about 4 pairs of them, which have been distributed to those close to him. I kept 1 pair. So I had his Crocs because I felt like if I got to a point where I was really stuck, I would just stand in his shoes.
Yeah.
And then that would give me the support that I needed to finish.
That is, and have you stood in the shoes?
Oh, I do all the time.
Oh, I love that.
I do all the time.
I love that. That's so great. That was so neat to have those details there, and the table set for 2. You mentioned the problems that he was having with his feet, and how, for obvious reasons, being a public person, you all hid that from the public to some degree. This is kind of, for me, something that I've been thinking of, but also a hard question. He was so full of life, as you said. It just seemed like every day he lived it to the fullest. I know he loved his food. He loved his drive-thrus and everything else.
He loved brown and white food, David. Food that come from the spectrum of color that most of us appreciate. The man loved brown and white food.
Oh, man.
But yes, he did love food.
I love that. And many people didn't know that he struggled with some health issues. And Joe's passing definitely was, like I said, still shocking to so many people. Was there anything privately that you anticipated that his death might be happening, or was it equally as shocking?
No, we both, what we both thought is that it would take a typical trajectory, meaning the diabetes. Thank you. And that it would be a long, slow progression down. And that was something that we spent time talking about. That was something that we knew that we were going to need each other to navigate through, and that there needed to be a lot of honesty and candor around that, because I don't know if you've ever been the caregiver, but it's really hard to be the caregiver. I think in many cases it's easier to be the patient, because you know what you're going through, you know what you need, or you know what you don't need, and you can communicate that or not. It's tough to be the caregiver because you're trying to anticipate, and sometimes that becomes a very codependent relationship. And so we didn't want to enter that phase of our lives together in that manner. So we shared a lot. We talked about, by the end of last year, having to put an elevator in our home.
Okay.
To make it easier for him to navigate up and down the stairs. So that was something that was on our radar. But his passing was not imminent. In a short time. What had happened was a week to the day before, I now call it Joe's Great Escape. And no, I'm not in denial. I very much understand that he died, but I now call it Joe's Great Escape. So a week to the day before he made his great escape, my mom fell and broke her leg. And in typical Joe form, we lived very independent lives, given how tightly woven we were together. But when I needed him, he was always there. And that wasn't a lot, right? I mean, I did my thing, he did his thing. And we checked in often with each other, but it wasn't, Joe, I need you now, with any frequency or regularity. So that morning I called and I told him, and he happened to be in a meeting at work, and I heard him say, I gotta go. And he actually beat me to St. Mary's. So I'm sorry. I mean, no disrespect to the institution that St. Mary's is now. I just can't remember what it's called. I think it's Ascension.
Okay.
But I refer to it still as St. Mary's.
Yeah.
So he beat me there. And it was in early April, and the halls were littered with people with the flu. The emergency room was so busy that day that we counted 10 gurneys of people who were waiting to be admitted to a space in the emergency room. They're literally in the hallway, kind of like the things that you're seeing about COVID right now.
Right.
And so once it became apparent that my mom was going to need to be transitioned to a short-term rehab facility, he left to go support me in that manner and take care of that while I stayed with my mom to get her through the process of being in the ER. And he caught the flu.
Wow.
And so that was on Monday. By Friday, we were supposed to go to a Passover dinner at a dear friend's house. And he said, listen, I'm just not feeling great. And he, more than anyone that I know, and men, please take no offense to this, but I have found with other men in my life, like they deny health issues and they think they're okay and they don't seek help. And one of the beauties of Joe is that he was very aware of his body and he knew what he needed to do to self-protect. And so he said, I'm going to tap out, but I really want you to go. He knew that we were both looking forward to it. So I went. Saturday, he was feeling worse. Sunday, he went to go get a chest x-ray. Monday, a week later now, I have both my parents that have medical appointments on opposite ends of the city. So I pick them both up. I leave him at home. I check in with him regularly. I had somebody go to the house and check on him. And by the time I got home, it was 5 o'clock. And I asked him if I could make him dinner. I made him a meal. He didn't eat much of it. We watched the Bucks game together. And I said, come on, buddy, let's go to bed. You're tired. You're sick. Don't stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning. Because, you know, that's what restaurant people do. Right, David? Like
I know.
You're hardwired if you're in this business to go to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, come on, buddy, you're tired. Let's go to bed. And he said, okay, I know. I'll be up soon. And that's the last I spoke to him.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It's so hard to just even think about what that experience was like for you. And I appreciate you being so candid and sharing it. What has life, right now, how have you been surviving without what you've called the cute guy, right?
my cute boy. It's been a really interesting journey. I had the good fortune going into this of almost 3 years of a daily meditative and spiritual religious practice under my belt. And I will tell you that I am on the other side of this and here today, partly because of that. I have also been supported by a very strong network of people. It's a small to a medium-sized group who have been ever present. Because we moved a lot as a family, I'm incredibly close to my 3 younger brothers. And I don't even know how my brother Jamie lived downtown. We lived in Elm Grove at the time. He was at my house, I think, in 15 minutes. My brother from Chicago, I think, made it up in about an hour. And my brother from Florida flew up and was there by about 7 o'clock that night. He stayed with me for a month. I did nothing. All I had to do is eat the food people put in front of me and sleep.
Wow.
They took care of my dogs. He drove me everywhere. I mean, I am so loved by my family and my good friends. I don't think you get through this without that. Then there was the incredible outpouring of support from the community, David. And I'll take this opportunity to apologize to people. Immediately, cards started coming. And I just didn't have the capacity in that first 2 weeks because there was the celebration of his life. And then we had a party, literally a big party. And there were just so many things happening quickly that I didn't have the time to start. So I started collecting the cards, and I have a full 12-bottle wooden wine box.
Wow.
And you can't it's got 2 layers, and you can't shove another card into either the top or the bottom layer. It's so full with cards. And for a
Wow.
while, I tried to open 1 or 2 a day. And then I came to a point where I just couldn't. And
Yeah.
I have them, and I'm still not able. You asked earlier about this, the celebration of me speaking. It wasn't until the anniversary of his passing this year that I was able to actually watch that whole thing.
Wow.
I still haven't been able to read anything that was in the news or watch any of the video from the news. So to anyone who sent me a card that's out there and listening, I apologize. I just haven't emotionally gotten to that point. And then I'll tell you the other thing that has been incredibly supportive. During quarantine, I got a certification in trauma-informed care, which helped me
Wow.
understand myself. And I have now woven that into some content I had from my prior business. And I've relaunched. I'll be working with the entire executive leadership team at St. Luke's Hospital next week. Um,
Wow.
so now I feel like my purpose is to help people better understand themselves so they can navigate through these really uncertain times that we're living in.
Wow. That is so great to hear, because I know people just wanted you to feel that outpouring, and totally understood, taking your own time. But there were so many people, like you said, that just wanted to make sure that you just felt the outpouring, and to know that that has meant the world to you is just all that people wanted to have you feel, because we love you, Jen. We wanted to make sure that you felt the love.
I very
So,
much felt that, and still do, right?
yeah,
This is a city that has been incredibly kind to both Joe and I, and held us in a way that I think is really special, and
yeah,
one that I don't take for granted, one that I'm grateful for. Milwaukee is home. I could have picked up and gone anywhere, but my roots are here. My friends are here.
yeah. That's so great. Now, a few little like more rapid fire
Yep.
things at the end of our Joe conversation. So, what was your favorite adventure with him?
Oh my God, there's so many. Probably the day we were dating. We'd been dating for about 6 months, and he said we needed to spend more time together because we had a weekend romance, essentially. So we took
Yeah.
a 2-week trip to the West Coast, and we woke up one morning in Palm Springs. He said, "Hey, let's go for a motorcycle ride." And I said, "All right, let's go." So he calls the local Harley dealership, and I'm not sort of paying attention to the conversation, but what got my attention is, under what circumstances would you rent me a Harley? Because while he owned one, he never got a license. And so the dealer said, "Bring your license." And Joe said, "Well, I don't have one." So then Joe said to the dealer, never one to take no for an answer when he was convicted. "Well, under what circumstances would you rent me a Harley?" And so the dealer responded, "Well, you can buy the bike from me, and if you return it at the end of the day unscathed, I will credit your money back less the rental fee." So this guy looks at me 6 months into a relationship. He said, "I only have $10,000 on my credit card. How much do you have?"
Yes.
He said, "About the same." And he's like, "All right, well, let's do this. You charge half, I'll charge half." And I said, "All right, look, dude, if you drop the bike, you are 100% responsible for the rest of the finances of this trip, because I will be officially tapped out." So I called my credit card company and I said, "Look, I need to let you know this big charge is coming through." They're like, "Hey, lady, it's your money. We don't care what you do with it." So we literally we each put $10,000 on our credit cards and bought a bike to rent it for 5 hours. Went to Joshua Tree. But I
Now
have a
that,
million stories like that. A million
yeah,
stories like that. Life with him
that,
was amazing.
yeah, I knew that would be hard to choose, but that's definitely an adventure, I would say. How about what was your favorite dining experience? You might have hinted at it earlier.
Um, It was the simple things. We had an
Yeah.
RV. Actually, we shared 2 RVs and rented 2. So we went on many RV trips. And my favorite dining adventures with him was pulling up to a greasy spoon in some town that's not even on the map, and walking in and sitting down, and he'd order everything on the menu, like everything on the menu. Another was, again, we were in the RV. It was a Sunday. It was Labor Day weekend, and we pull up to this bar in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa somewhere, right on the border. so we could get the game. And it was the kind of bar when you walk in, everybody stops and looks at you because no one knows you. That
Yeah.
had little feet on the thing and the hard-boiled eggs and the stuff on the counter and all that. And he looks and he quickly says, "A round of drinks for everybody." Well, by the end of the game, we were friends with everybody, and we'd had so much to drink that we had to leave the RV in the parking lot that night. Yeah.
See, that's it. Life
Yeah.
to the fullest. I mean, so many things that so many people about, how many of us have walked into the restaurant and been like, I just would want to order everything, But
And
he like literally did that.
all the time. All the time.
Okay, so what do you think? What do you consider his legacy to be?
One thing, and it sits out by my coffee machine, so I read it every day. The morning that he left, I wrote down, if there's one thing that I know for sure, if he had the opportunity to say if he would have changed anything about how he lived, his answer undeniably would have been no. And then I wrote, should we all be so resolved? I think his greatest legacy is he was who he was through and through and through. He never, ever did anything or said anything that was going to confuse you. He meant different things to different people, of course. But what you saw was what you got with him. Yeah. And he lived with the vulnerability of a child and the passion of the greatest passionate people that you know.
Yeah.
And that combination of vulnerability, not giving a shit about what anyone thought of him. For sure he had an ego, right? I mean, there's no question the man had an ego bigger than his empire, but
it was tolerable.
Yeah, he was, but he really didn't care what you thought, right? I mean, right. He had an ego. He loved people, but he was as vulnerable as a 2-year-old and so passionate about living.
Yeah, that's so true. And there's just so many examples of that. And I think it's important. This is one of my favorite things. I keep it in my studio also, but I know that this has been a picture that has been seen, but this is an oldie but goodie.
That's a great one.
It's so great. And the reason is because, I think it's important for you to know, and I'm sure you do, but just to hear again, that there are so many people, including me, that literally on sometimes daily, weekly basis, like think of him and think about what he would say to us, or think about how he might suggest something to us, or think about how he might have fun with us, all of those things. He was like such a cheerleader for so many people in so many ways. And I agree with you, the way you put it in terms of his legacy, absolutely. And for so many of us, just that cheerleader and that, giant hug and that larger than life personality that at so many times we just all needed. And I can just hope that, we were there equally for him too. But
he was loved.
Yeah.
That's why he wanted to be laid out at the grain exchange with red velvet stanchions, David.
Yes. Oh God, I love that. So Jen, there's exciting things happening. And you mentioned a little bit about your time coming up at St. Luke's, but there's Bartolotta and Associates. This is so cool. The next adventure of Jen, which I am so excited about. But I first want to start, I was looking at things and I saw on your website this Maya Angelou quote that I love too. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is front and center on your website. So tell us about Bartolotta and Associates and what this is.
Sure. So thank you for asking, actually. I have been a student of humanity and the human condition for almost 30 years in the human capital development arena. The first half of that was with a Fortune 500 company in sales and then sales management. And then the second half of that was with my own company called Train to Gain, where I worked with local companies and corporations to onboard young talent. So I'm a student of humanity, and there's a story that I tell as part of my programming that was very self-harming, in that I wasn't able to I didn't have the self-awareness to self-regulate, and I created harm to myself without intention. And so I wanted to understand that, and that caused me to seek out the training with St. A. I was aware that they did it. I knew that we were going to be in quarantine. I thought, well, let me do something useful with this time. And it just so happened serendipitously that they had a session coming up and they moved it virtually, and I was able to participate in this session. And so what the session did is, it's very dense neuroscience. Of 11 people on my cohort, I was the only non-clinician, non-PhD. It is dense neuroscience that has a purpose, and it serves it well. In fact, Oprah came to Milwaukee and did a study about St. A for 60 minutes.
Oh, right. I remember.
Yeah, so I saw that, but what sat with me is, I'm not a clinician, and I felt very incongruent trying to deliver the content, even though I'm certified to do it, deliver the content given my lack of credentials in that arena. But there's so much good content in there. I felt that if I could make it relatable and digestible for the common man, that I could help people. And so I've worked very closely with St. A to develop a 60-minute session. It's geared towards leaders. And through a journey of self-exploration, it gives them insights into the mental, it captures the mental health and stability of their employees in that moment.
Oh, okay.
And when you have that insight you don't even need to know the what, it's just, where are you today, right? So as an example, it can be something as simple as a stoplight, green, yellow, red. So green is, hey, I'm here, I'm good, I'm ready to go, I'm good to produce. As human beings, we have this ability to put on a facade and still go to work. So yellow is, I've put my facade on, I'm here, but I'm a little agitated. Yeah. Red is, I'm here, I'm pretty hot, and I'm going to do the best that I can today. So by this self-exploration, and we gain awareness, and once we have awareness, then we can begin to regulate. And so the session helps you gain awareness. It helps you understand how to regulate, and then taking it a step further, once you see it in yourself, it's very easy to identify in others. So unfortunately, the way our brains work is very judgy, right? So if all of a sudden I disengage from you and start to do this, I've just confused you, right?
Right.
Because I've been very open with my body language.
Right.
Now, no matter what's going on with me that caused me to do this, you're going to judge it in a negative light, because that's what this does. So my training helps you to understand what's really going on, and to see disengaged or aroused behavior in the light in which it belongs.
Right.
And the light that belongs in is that somehow I got triggered and I needed to pull back. Or conversely, I could have lashed out at you. David, I can't believe you asked me that question. What's wrong with you, right? That would be the opposite of this disengagement. So once you have awareness about yourself and why it happens to you and how to regulate, then you can see it easily in others. And then as a leader, if you develop this check-in system, imagine if, let's say you have a leaderboard, right? And everybody types in what color they are. And you see that people are mostly yellow and mostly red, and there's not a lot of green today. And your biggest client ever calls you and says, David, I need a dinner for 20 outside at my house tonight at 5:00. And you know, by sending this email out, you're going to just take your whole team who's already yellow and red, you're going to shove them off the ledge. So as a leader, you say to yourself, all right, well, I want to do this event. I want to satisfy our client, but there's going to be a better way for me to talk to my people about it. Maybe,
and I think it's so
call instead of an email, right? So it helps you as a leader lead better.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting too. I mean, the timing is so key, because I think right after things are getting, back to work a little bit more normally, whatever that will be post-COVID, that this kind of training and insight is going to be so much even more critical, because the level of sensitivity that we're going to need to have with each other to, collaborate and to produce well at work is going to be different. So I think this is just incredible, because I know that it's needed for so many people and so many organizations. I love too the Mrs. B on community. That's so cool, the blog. But I really want people to check out bartolottaassociates.com, because they can learn about the training program, see some great examples. I love the blog. But I think that this is so exciting, and I can't wait to watch and see what this journey is for you. And I think part of it too, we heard a little bit about the Beacon, which is a project that I know might be part, or the building at least part, might be on hold. But the Beacon is a project in partnership with Milwaukee, I believe, that you were or are an investor in, and part of what is associated with Bartolotta and Associates. Is that right?
It is. And the building we have let go.
Okay.
But the concept isn't about a particular space.
Right.
At the end of the day, that space no longer, what ended up happening, quite frankly, is we had committed financing. And then when COVID happened, we lost our committed financing, understandably, right?
Right.
But that concept is so much bigger than any one space. And so as Milwaukee works to pivot and continue to evolve in the beautiful way that they have since March, it will happen again. It will probably be an evolution. But it's something that what separates us, David, is time and distance. And I'm really, part of the reason that I'm doing this training and I'm so excited about it, I am really concerned about our mental and emotional well-being in this country.
Right.
And I'm all for supporting anything that brings us together in a collaborative, diverse way, right? One of the most beautiful things that Milwaukee did for Milwaukee was the night market. I don't know if you had the opportunity to.
So awesome. Wisconsin Avenue, beautiful.
Outside of, there are very few places in Milwaukee where you see that diversity of how people come together as a couple, of different colors of people, different sizes of people, different ages of people. And I believe so strongly in what they've done that I'm willing to invest in where they want to go.
Yeah. They've done so many cool things over the years, and I loved reading about what this Beacon project could still be. So I'm excited to hear that it probably will still evolve in some way, kind of like just a hub of really awesome things. And like you said, whatever building it might be. Is the Milwaukee Food School still part of what might be?
Yep. I don't know that will be an element of how Milwaukee evolves, but the Milwaukee Food School, run by Andy Saka, she's a genius. And I sit on both her community board and her national board. And we partnered with Milwaukee over the summer to offer cooking lessons on their cloud cafe. And we just did our last one last week, but Andy will now be moving that content onto her platform. And she's much like Lori Friedrich, right? Who's done such a phenomenal job locally connecting dots for us as it relates to the food scene. Andy's looking to do it a little bit broader, a little bit more in depth, and to include every facet of food, from a seed to you eating it to waste, right? Food waste.
Wow.
So it's really exciting what she's put together, and I'm honored to serve her in any capacity.
Wow, that's so cool. So something more to keep an eye out for, to keep watching for. So a little bit about the restaurants, Bartolotta restaurants. Something that I read in publication from you was said this: while the chapter in the book of my life that chronicled active participation in the Bartolotta restaurants closed in late February, I will forever be an ambassador. So are you still with the restaurant company at all? Does that mean you aren't?
So I am no longer. There was an agreement that was put in place that allowed Paul to purchase Joe's shares that had gone into an estate via the mechanism of a note. So Paul purchased all of Joe's shares via a note, and that money is owed to the beneficiaries of Joe's estate. And that just is what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is 100% Paul's company, and I am no longer involved or participate in anything that has to do with the restaurants. And that really has pretty much been the case since Joe made his great escape. I represented the company. I spoke to over 5,000 people last year, if you can believe that. It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
There were, the outpouring of love and support and desire to recognize Joe and his philanthropy, particularly in this city, was pretty overwhelming last year. And so I spoke on many occasions, either accepting on behalf of Joe or both Joe and I. And so I occupied kind of that space as it related to representing Joe and I in the restaurants in that way. But I haven't been involved at all with the company since Joe passed.
Okay. Did you personally have a desire to be at some point?
I haven't, these are things that I haven't worked all the way through.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me about our house recently, and they said, do you miss it? And I said, what I said was, I miss what it was. And so, I think that it was my honor and privilege to support Joe as he grew the company and managed the company. But he was my connection to it, right?
Yeah.
And so I miss what it was.
Right.
I miss it with him.
Right. Right. And I think that's such a key point to say, Jen. And I think that so many people are going to appreciate that honesty, because I can just, and I know you in certain people you're still connected with, but I hear a lot that statement is so true in so many people's hearts, whether they're people that still work there or have worked there, some way associated with it, that is a sentiment that rings true. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it's very key. So is there, dining at the restaurants, is it something, I know that you love your house, you love to cook, you love your life, and this is a different time during COVID too, but can we expect to see you at dining out at Bartolotta restaurants? Are there places that you deeply miss, or are you still not at that point either?
Well, where I am, first of all, I'm not dining out. When I'm ready to go do that, that will be the first place I do it, because if my brother-in-law, if there's anybody who can navigate a company through this, my brother-in-law's pedigree is exactly the right pedigree to navigate any hospitality company through what the world looks like today. He is a process guy. And so when I get to the point where I feel comfortable doing that, that will be the first place I go. I do pick up. And I support the restaurants. I don't believe that Bartolotta's is doing pickup yet, but I support the restaurants in Bayview, where I've recently moved. So I'm a huge fan of Vanguard. Holy crap. Like, I eat that Dynamite sausage once a week. It's like, they're just, Bayview's filled with a plethora of great restaurants for me to pick up from. And so I've been trying to support Three Brothers, right? I try to be supporting the community that I live in right now. But for me, my brother donated a kidney to my husband, and whether my feelings are legitimate or not from a science perspective, I want to be around my parents. And if I get COVID, I can't. I want to be around my brother and his family more than anything. And, it is known to have a direct effect on your renal function. And so the guy gave my brother a kidney, if for no other reason, being respectful of that incredible gift and the life that he gave all of us, of Joe, for 6 more years. I'm just not going to expose myself in environments where I'm not completely comfortable, out of reverence and respect for my relationships. So I'm not there yet, but it will be the first place I go when I'm ready.
That's so cool. Well, one day I want to meet you there and have a toast and a cheers. It would be great. But I think that's important from a health perspective too, for people to really recognize that that's a big part of what we all need to pay attention to, especially when we're caregivers for parents and people that are compromised. So related to the restaurants, I know Carolata was a big just passion for you. It was just unbelievable for our community. So I'm assuming the answer is because you're not involved in the restaurants, you're not involved in Carolata. Is that right too?
That is. And I will, at about the same time that I found my hospitality heart, I found that I lived a life that looked a lot different than other people. So in 5th grade, we went to Haiti in the era of baby doc, and I saw poverty that most people in this country don't even know, right? I will find a way to contribute to this community in a way that is meaningful and feeds my soul and respects the work that Joe and I did together. It's something that I continue to do. I've just done it very quietly.
Right.
And it is something that I will continue to do. I will probably look to do that now through my new session and support nonprofits who can't afford what I charge for profits, access to the content, because I believe that it holds the potential to really help us navigate this place that we find ourselves in life. And that will be probably the first place that I look to give back in a meaningful way short term.
Yeah, that makes total sense. The DNC, did you watch any of it, Jen, last week?
It was really hard for me.
Yeah.
It was hard for me because of the role he played in luring it. It was hard for me because of the sadness that I felt for the city, of the missed opportunity. I watched bits and pieces of it. I mostly caught up, in sound bites the next morning.
Right.
It was, it's a bitter pill to swallow, right?
Yeah.
But
do you think, Jen, that people, that either whether it was leadership or other organizations, all things considered, and like you said, you're super sensitive to the health issues surrounding COVID and what needs to happen because of the science and health regarding it. But do you think that there was a big enough, I don't want to say fight, but push to really keep whatever we could?
I don't like to judge, David, but so I'll give you an opinion of what I see, right? It would have been an incredibly ballsy move early on. But I think that we had, and also this is armchair quarterbacking, right? It's over.
Right.
When you look back and acknowledging it would have been a very ballsy move. I think we had a window of opportunity in April to go to the DNC and to bargain and say, look, we'll let you out of everything. No one will charge you anything if you sign a contract to come back to Milwaukee in 4 years. That's passed, right? I wish that, and I'm gonna put this on the DNC. I wish that all the backdrops would have been about Milwaukee. I wish that there would have, Peggy Williams-Smith and the team at Visit Milwaukee did an incredible job about saying, here's our city with all those interviews.
Incredible.
I see, and I'm not about blame or shame, but I do feel like they missed an opportunity to help a city that needed it.
Yeah.
There was so much excitement. There was so much collaboration. There was so much willingness to do whatever we needed to do to make sure that we shined as a city. I felt like they did us a little bit of a disservice by not letting Milwaukee be the backdrop, right? Like, what did it matter that they were shooting from Wilmington, Delaware, right?
Right, exactly.
They should have been shooting, in this day and age when it's virtual, they should have been shooting and highlighting Milwaukee, and I will leave it at that. I was disappointed that they didn't. Yeah.
I have the same sentiment, and I spoke up a little bit and people kind of slapped my hand, Jen, but I agree. It's, it was more so just the visual factor of not being represented, but I appreciate you opening up a little bit about that. Okay, we're going to get back to some rapid fire. Jen, I could talk to you for days.
Oh, we'll keep it going, David.
Okay, rapid fire.
Yeah.
This is going to be concluding our journey today, but all right, so besides cooking, what is a favorite hobby or pastime?
Being outside, doing anything outside.
Yeah, you know, surprisingly, during COVID, that's become my favorite thing too. I mean, I am like into the weeding. I can't stop trimming the landscape. Like I am loving the outside too. That's so cool.
Well, and there's hope there, right, David? Because no one in March, when we were all in shutdown, no one told Mother Nature that the world had shut down. The stuff kept coming up. And right, there's hope that it keeps moving despite what we're challenged by. And so if I ever need a reminder, I'm feeling sorry for myself, I go outside.
That's so true. I love finding that in the outdoors. That is so true. The hope factor is so key. What is your biggest pet peeve, Jen? Do you have one?
I wouldn't call it a pet peeve, but I will tell you it makes me sad. As I've been on this journey of self-exploration, I get sad when I bear witness to people who aren't comfortable in their own skin. And I won't call it a pet peeve, but I will tell you that it makes me sad. You know, I've learned through my meditative and my religious practices a lot of awareness and regulation. And so it takes a lot to push me off my foundation and to trigger me, unless it's emotional, like Joe. Like today, I had several bouts of stirring up stuff that still causes me to be emotional. But look, life's hard. Life is hard, right? And what we don't do for each other is have enough grace. And so I've turned what might have aggravated me in the past into wishes for people that they are more comfortable with who they are.
Yeah, that's so key. And, you know, I think it's something that I really believe in too. And the more that, you know, we kind of come into ourselves and become more and more comfortable with who we are, you wish that for people that you do see. And, you know, when you're a heartfelt person that's connected to yourself, you sense in other people when they need help getting there. And I can feel that sense too. It's important. Okay, if you had a spirit animal, what would it be?
Dolphin.
Oh, dolphin. I love that.
Playful, in nature, in water, part of a large pod, right? Part of a much greater community.
Love that. Sensitive. You know, we were on a trip, real quick story about a dolphin, and there was a pregnant woman on the trip, and we were doing a dolphin excursion. And the people that were running the excursion couldn't believe it, because literally all the dolphins were like doing these giant loops around her and jumps around her. And it was because they sensed that she had a baby in there. It was so cool. So
Dogs
cool.
can be that way too.
Okay, here's the next rapid fire. Are you a dog lover, Jen?
I have 3 dogs, and they are they keep me going, right? Yeah.
This is an older picture, but
it's not
I knew
that
you were a dog lover.
I'm down one. I'm down the little guy on the far right. In fact, so Bob had special meaning. Joe and I picked up Bob 10 days before he made his great escape. And so I was left with 3 adult dogs and a puppy. And Bob has since found a home with one of our managers, Zoe Lord. And he needed to be the king of a house, not one of a pack. And they love him, and he's happy, and my house is calmer, and we're in a much better place now that Bob has
found a happy home.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
They are my babies. And I am that dog mom.
So special. How do you like living in Bayview?
You know what? I can't tell you how much I love Bayview. I have you know, and I will own a lot of the responsibility for this, but I've spoken to my neighbors more in the 3 months I've been in Bayview than I did 15 years living in Elm Grove. And I bear a lot of that responsibility, right? But this is such a community that looks out for each other, that cares for each other. I can't tell you how many neighbors over these 12 weeks randomly, it's almost like they had this plan, which I don't think they did, but like once a week, somebody will stop by and give me a gift. Last weekend, my neighbor across the alley came by with this beautiful vintage Pyrex bowl that I can't believe she gave to me with fresh produce from her garden.
Wow.
I mean, I amazing, thoughtful, loving, welcoming gifts still to this day. And if you're a people lover and a dog lover and you like diversity, because it doesn't get in Milwaukee, I don't think it gets more diverse than Bayview. It's your place. It's just
Yeah.
I love living in Bayview.
That's good. I'm so glad you found a happy place to land. Do you have any ambitions to open a restaurant?
No. It's hard work, David, and as you know, and I stand firm on the blog post that I wrote earlier this year. The restaurant model is broken.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take some really smart people who are committed, who have a depth in the industry, like my brother-in-law, to find a way out.
Yeah.
I think that it's a slog, and how did it happen? I think the TV Food Network partly contributed to it. So
Yeah.
good and bad, right? On any given Sunday, your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. But the model is broken. You just simply can't operate at single-digit net profit.
You even say raising your prices, share administrative costs, collaborate, only take paid reservations. I mean, basically the article that you wrote, I think in the Business Journal, people should definitely check out. But those are all things that you were thinking about in terms of the broken model, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we want it. It's a hospitality business. We want to take care of people. We want to take care of our own people in particular, right? And you can't do that if you're only making 5 or 6% net profit, right? It's just impossible. And there were, in my opinion, while I believe in a free market economy, the failure rate of restaurants pre-COVID was 75% on any given year, right? You have well-intended people wanting to get into this business, but not understanding the mechanics of running a business. And
Right.
creative person who can produce food that is visually and from a satiation perspective exciting to us, that wants to make us go out, isn't necessarily the person that knows how to run a business.
Right.
And it's an industry that's failed to collaborate. You look at what Gary Witt has done with Neva.
Right.
All of these independent theaters around the country, and he's gathered them together under an umbrella. My father-in-law, and Joe was famous for saying this, the fingers on the hand are nothing, but you bring them together in a fist and now you've got something, right?
Right.
The restaurant industry has failed to coalesce. And I am vehemently opposed to pumping money into a broken model. I'm 100% in favor of helping to fix the model and lift these people who have dedicated their lives to their craft up and out. But we need the platform to help them do that.
Right.
Throwing money at a broken model is not going to fix what's wrong, right? We have to address the systemic challenges with that business model.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so important, and especially to be thinking about as we have this opportunity to kind of come out of COVID differently. But I definitely encourage people to look at that more in depth in terms of your talking about that in the Business Journal conversation. One last thing, I got to bring Stacy into the stream because she's been so patient. I knew I was going to talk to you for too long. But here's one last thing. Jennifer Bartolotta is
peaceful, at peace.
Jen, I adore you. I am just so happy for you in so many ways. I think about you so often. I really do. And it meant the world.
Down and visit your sister. Give me a heads up that you're coming.
I know. I will.
Spend some time on the patio.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that. I'm going to do that. But we care for you so deeply, and I'm so grateful for our conversation today. People I know have wanted to hear from you in this way, so it means the world to so many. And especially as a friend of Joe's and of you, it really means a lot to me. So I'm really grateful.
Thanks for the opportunity, David. All my best.
Thanks, Jen. We're going to talk soon. Take care. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And now the fabulous bringing Stacy into the stream. I owe Stacy an apology because she has been patient.
No. That was awesome. So, great to hear from Jen.
Isn't it? And it's so great that you're here. I really appreciate it. I was saying to you before we came into stream that I have been watching Wallpapered City for a couple of years now, and I just have become more and more curious. And I knew that for DC Live, I had to figure out, what is going on, because this is such an impressive organization and project that you lead. I love the creativity. But Stacy Williams-Ung, you are the executive director of Wallpapered City. Tell us, what really is, in general, Wallpapered City all about?
Well, okay, so we're not a wallpaper company. It's a euphemism for like painting the town red. So we're a public arts organization that specializes in murals.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. You say that the street art movement is a huge renaissance taking place, and really on a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
So it is so cool that what your collaborators and team of people are doing around our city is really bringing this global kind of movement to our local spaces. And just everyone needs like happiness and joy and meaning in art and creativity. So this is just fantastic. You specifically help source artists. You work through the logistics with clients, the funding, promotion, copyright negotiations. So you're kind of like the manager of the projects, is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of a perfect storm of the life I led before this, just because, so I'm formally trained in graphic design, but I love painting. And so I would paint on the side as an artist. And then I was, going to work as a graphic design consultant, working by the hour, serving clients, branding, that kind of stuff. So I learned how to do proposals and how to, oh, you're showing my murals. That's cool. Yeah, this is when I painted on 26th, a giant fish for Radio Milwaukee. But yeah, so I learned a lot of agency stuff. My husband, Ken, is a copyright attorney. So the kind of things we talk about at the dinner table are like copyright negotiations and brands and stuff like that. And so it was just one of those things where I was starting to get hired as, oh, there's me on the lift.
Yeah.
I love construction lifts, man. So I started to get hired to do mural art in other cities like Sarasota, Florida, and other places. And I never did one in Milwaukee. It didn't even occur to me because they're just, I'm not from here. I'm originally from Memphis, and we moved here in 2005. So like in the 2000 teens was when I really started doing murals, and I was just like, oh yeah, they don't do that here in the Midwest. It's just not a thing. And I would, ask other artists, and they're like, oh yeah, no one will ever let you paint a mural here. Like, forget it. And so then we did Black Cat Alley. And when my colleague and friend, Tim Decker, he's not really my colleague anymore. He's a animation professor at UWM, but he is a friend. And when Professor Decker, as we call him, and I decided to do Black Cat Alley, my life changed. Honestly, and a lot of people's lives changed. I think I underestimated how much that affected a lot of artists. That was the first mural job for quite a number of Milwaukee painters who are now professional muralists.
Wow.
And that's I'm so proud of that.
And I think that for Black Cat Alley, these numbers might be off a little now, but I think it's at least up to 21 murals, 24 artists, like you said. I mean, it's made a big difference. What's so cool about that too is it was really put together with no profit in mind. Right. All the artists were paid and are paid. It really is in what was a crime-ridden area. Mm-hmm. And now school groups and community groups and everyday people visit the alley, and it's turned into just an amazing expression of art.
Yeah, I mean, we get calls from like, the Cedarburg School District would like to bring the 8th graders, and then this used to be a place where people sold drugs.
Wow.
Like, well, there you go. Here's a great story about that, actually, in terms of like the makeover. One time I was at a networking event by Generator here in Milwaukee. It was probably 2 years ago. And this gentleman comes up to meet me. His name was Lincoln Fowler, and he's one of the 3 founders of Collectivo Coffee.
Okay.
So he shakes my hand and he's like, are you the same person that did Black Cat Alley? And I'm like, yeah, it's right behind your Colectivo on Prospect. And he's like, who are you and where did you come from? Because one of the things we talked about was that is their original Altera, it used to be called
Okay,
Altera,
right.
That's the original Altera Cafe location. And so they have been on that corner for 20 years. And he was like, that alley has been a pain in my neck for a generation.
See,
like, we've hired specialists, urban planners. We've talked to the city. We've asked so many different specialists, like, how can we clean up the alley, make it safe, make it, not a problem, not a liability for our cafe.
Right.
And he's like, and then you and your band of artists come in there and paint a bunch of pictures.
That is awesome. See, it literally is
double my business in that location. And I was like, you're welcome, but
see, that is what we call a testimony. That's so cool.
Yeah,
now I'm gonna put into stream. Yeah, I'm gonna put into stream a video. It doesn't have any audio. So as we keep talking, I'm just gonna let this play for viewers so that they can get an idea. But related to what you were saying about Colectivo and that company, is that it really, this is bringing the murals and wherever they are located, brings communities together. It revitalizes neighborhoods. I love that you say it makes landmarks that people want to see and talk about. It's so true. It just isn't about the art. It's about what it creates in a community and how it allows these artists to express themselves. So a couple of things. How are the artists selected?
Well, it depends on the project. So when we do, my primary clients at Wallpapered City, I say we're a team, but our primary client profile, you could say, are municipalities, BIDs, which stands for Business Improvement Districts, which are like neighborhood quasi-governmental organizations here in Milwaukee, for those of you who aren't familiar with BIDs. But they're tasked with like business improvement. So several times we've been hired by BIDs. We're working now for the Villard bid. We work for the East Side bid. We've worked for several of them. We worked for the Bayview bid. You guys were just talking about Bayview. Yeah. They don't have a bid anymore. It's now defunct. But when they did, they hired us and we did the Bayview murals. So when we have that kind of client, it's a community project. And so when you say, how are the artists selected? It's by jury. So we usually get a jury that's representative, maybe 7 people, maybe 9 people. We like an uneven number so that we won't have a tie vote. But what we do is, look how short my hair was. That's Antoine, my colleague, Antoine Carter. We have a vote, and they're hardly ever artists. It might be an older gentleman from the community and a teenager. We try and get as diverse a grouping as possible, not just racially diverse, but gender diverse, and maybe even try and get some conservatives and some liberals. Like, we really want to get a cross section as best we can in these juries so that we can see. We even had a 6-year-old in one of our juries because somebody couldn't find babysitting. And he brought his kid along and the kid voted. And we were like, well, what do you think? And he was like, I like that one. And that's a vote, That's
cool. Yeah. So I'm assuming that the way the artists get paid also have to do with, the size and scope of the project is probably how that works.
Well, kind of. So what we do is we, with community projects, we set an amount by square footage. So we're trying to raise the rate for artists here in Milwaukee, but it's a really tricky line for Wallpapered City to balance on. And sometimes, there are art critics in town who are like, Wallpapered City doesn't pay their muralists enough, which breaks my heart because we want to. I would love to pay artists $1 million. I really would. Right. I'm an artist. I'm a muralist.
Show me the money.
Say to me. I spent a whole life as an art teacher and a children's book illustrator. It's like, don't tell me I don't value artists, please.
Yeah.
But we're working a lot of times with tax money, or we're working with a private donation where it's like some guy in the community donated $20,000. And, we need to use that $20,000 to get as much mural as possible.
Right.
Can we do 2? Can we do 3? Should we do one huge one? So it depends, but we are trying to, now that we've become like it or not, we're now leaders in this space. There's no other, there are organizations in Milwaukee that do murals, but there's none that kind of do it the way we do in a commercial way. And so as leaders in the space, we have a role to play to try and push that per square footage up. I mean, I've seen mural projects where, like right now, for example, there's a call to do a very large mural, has nothing to do with us, on a very large brewery wall. And everyone's forwarding it to me like, ooh, have you seen this? And the per square footage rate, if you take this ginormous wall and divide it out, is like $5, $3 per square foot. And being a muralist, I know it's the ultra marathon of art. You're out there in the hot sun, using your arms and legs, bending over. It's really hard work. So to be paid so little is pretty tough. But we've done projects where it's only $6 a square foot, and I've had to undergo criticism for that. So it's like, I get it. We're really trying to push it up to like $10, $12, $15 a square foot, but that's
it's hard. Yeah. I'm sure that's a big challenge. One of the things that's in stream here is this, my studio's in the historic Third Ward. So I had the pleasure of watching this come to life, which was so cool. But this is the unsung hero. And the muralist is Case McLean. This is a 6-story project. And I am telling you, I mean, this is like unbelievable. I want to bring this into look at this, Stacy. I mean, I'm telling you, look at this, but you like, no, see how like itsy bitsy tiny he is on the size of those hands?
He is the size of a knuckle, David.
Oh.
The man is the size of a knuckle. And to watch him out there. So Case McLean, just to give you guys some background, he is from Frankfurt, Germany, and he is one of the most accomplished muralists in the world. Like, people have been talking about us working with Shepard Fairey. And believe me, I'm excited about Shepard Fairey. And Shepard Fairey is famous for different reasons. He's like a commercially famous artist. But this Case McLean is like a gallery fine art famous artist. He is
amazing,
phenomenal. And the story behind this mural, that is actually a portrait without the head of Karen Bell, who is an entrepreneur in the Third Ward. She's a James Beard award-winning chef.
Yeah. And
the concept there was to take a notable woman from the community, a woman entrepreneur who's successful, someone like Karen, someone like Jen Bartolotta. I mean, we wanted somebody who was really notable. And this was all Case's idea, of course, I say we. But he wanted someone really notable so that he could do this powerful image on a building that actually used to house women workers 100 years ago. Back in 1920, it was a hosiery factory, and it was women on their feet for long hours doing hard work. So he wanted it to sort of reflect the past and the future of Milwaukee, especially in the Third Ward, of like workers, female workers.
It's so cool. It's so impressive. Another one that I think is, I just loved looking at, and I'm going to go see this one in person. So far, I've only seen it in the pictures, but this is the West Allis Living Streets, Thomas Evans, AKA Detour.
Yeah, Detour.
But
picture of this mural, because that's just a little.
Yes. I know. So this is the process to me is so incredible. Like the behind the scenes of how it, this is kind of, in the mid phase or getting the outline for the painting on there. Yeah. But if you see the finished project, and this is a street view, and then I'm going to show you a close up. This is from down the street, but I mean, these are huge, and they are making such a statement. This is what I love, is the interaction of people. With the projects.
So the father and son live in Denver. They came all the way from Colorado to see themselves on this mural. Can you imagine being able to show this to your son? To be able to be like,
awesome.
Son, here we are on this giant building in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
I just love it.
So beautiful. Yeah.
I love it. Now, I'm going to also show in the stream right now this Harbor District project, but I'm going to ask you a question about the some of the logistics. So, we see these in the city and all over, examples that we've been showing here. But is there like a maintenance plan, or how does this, what happens when, something needs to be touched up? Or
these are not permanent murals, David.
Okay.
They're just not. We live in Wisconsin, and the weather here is brutal. And so what we do is, Well, there are two different questions: longevity and maintenance, and then the legal permissions for how long it can be on display are three actually very separate questions. So without getting too pedantic about the whole thing, it's really just about weather. We try and help clients manage their expectations about how long these things will last. And it's interesting because we do have vintage murals here in Milwaukee that have become such a major part of the landscape, like especially the ones by Reynaldo Hernandez. There's the one in the big Eagle mural, the mural of peace. There's the mural on the Building for the Arts in Bronzeville that faces the 43 at the North Avenue exit. So those are both by Mr. Hernandez. And I mean, they've been around since the 80s and 90s. So they kind of defy what I'm saying, but you have to understand the arts mural at North Avenue has been retouched, significantly retouched in the last, I guess, 5 to 7 years. It was in bad disrepair. So I think what we have to do is just plan to replace them. Sometimes we can have artists come in and retouch if something has been defaced or if it's just had water damage. My mural, actually, I did a mural of butterflies and dragonflies in the on Holton Street across from the swing park. And that mural is only a year old and it's just garbage now.
Yeah,
because
I can imagine. I mean, it's like you said, it's Wisconsin. Now, one of the things, I know we're running up against time, but I want to quickly mention this because I loved this part of your concept too, but this is obviously like a boarded up building or storefront. So of course, this probably is more temporary, but I personally love the concept of adding art to what would normally be a very bad eyesore for whatever reason in a community. Is this something that you hope to do more of?
So this isn't one of our projects. You did get on Facebook because we do Milwaukee Mural Monday, and I'd love for anybody watching here to follow our Milwaukee Mural Mondays. And just like this one, we don't post only murals that we're behind. And we are very honest about that in the post. It's like, this was done by so-and-so, great job, we love it. What we do is we research all the different murals in Milwaukee, and then every Monday we present a new Milwaukee Mural Monday.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question, I'm actually not a huge fan of board up projects. I feel like it's a little bit like lipstick on a pig. And I'm not saying they're bad. There's nothing intrinsically bad about it. So for example, in Villard right now, we're going to be painting a couple of boarded windows and making them beautiful. But to me, I feel like I never like it when the murals are an afterthought. Like, hey, can you slap one of your pictures on this and make it look like not so bad? I feel like the systemic problems we have with poverty and disinvestment in communities can't be fixed by us painting a sunflower on your boarded up building. Like, we need to find better ways. You know, these bids and communities are working so hard to get investment in their communities. Now, can the artwork in the community lead to that? Absolutely. So when we start talking about the broader issues, I mean, I think Villard is so inspirational. I'm so excited to be working on this neighborhood. You know, it's historic old North Milwaukee, and they have had a problem with disinvestment for a couple generations now. And now you've got this leader, Angelique Sharp, who's the director, just fighting for her life to bring this neighborhood around. You've got the UWM Urban Studies program is offering like free urban planning for them and doing all this. So there's just like amazing firecrackers going off in Villard right now with new businesses starting, even during the pandemic. I mean, seriously, David, even in this 2020 that we live in, this neighborhood is on fire with growth and economic investment. And so having a mural corridor along there just sharpens the point. You know, it gives people just another reason to go there. Yeah.
That makes sense. I love that. And your social media, Instagram, Facebook, website, wallpapered.city. All kinds of great information. So many great things to see. There's a really helpful map of where you can kind of take a journey and check out some of these amazing murals. But on behalf of our community, I just want to thank you, because what you are spearheading, it really is in so many different layers, so critical, and not only during this time, but to give us something to look forward to and to know that artists are working to transform our communities, to help our economy, to help our creativity, to help us feel better, to transform alleys into positive experiences for people is so cool. And I bet it just feels awesome to be a leader in that place. So thank you. And thank you for joining me today, because this was so great. I love what you're doing. I really do.
Thank you so much, David. It was an honor.
Good, good. Thanks so much. Enjoy the upcoming weekend. I'm going to keep track of you, and I hope to see you post-COVID at a really cool mural spot, because I can't wait to see what's happening. Take care.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, what a great day on DC Live. I mean, these are people I could have just been talking to. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there. I need to take a nap this conversation. The last thing I want to tell you is that we have some really great things happening. And this week, as many of you know, we have a special edition tomorrow. And tomorrow is right here. Chef Dan Jacobs, tomorrow, right here, Facebook Live, Events by DC, 9 o'clock. He is right off the set of Beat Bobby Flay on the Food Network. So he's going to be here tomorrow. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be introducing you to Liv a Little Ice Cream. Liv is such a great, great lady, a great entrepreneur, and I can't wait for you to meet her. So join me tomorrow, and we're going to have a special time together at 9 o'clock. Thank you, Jennifer. Love her. Thank you, Stacy. Such a great job you're doing in our community. And thanks, everybody, for watching today. It's been a lot of fun. And we will see you tomorrow, same place at 9 o'clock. Have a great day, everybody.